Welcome to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 276. My name is John Morgan. Cold Coffee's not with me, but I don't want to say it's an upgrade. I don't want to do that because that would just be downright offensive.
Especially since the guy's editing the audio afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. Let's start that again. Welcome to the MMA Roadshow. I am so hurt that my man Cold Coffee is not with me, but we've got not a suitable replacement, but one that will have to make do. Oscar Willis from the World MMA Awards nominated The Mac Life.
You know, the more you say it almost sounds like you think it's ridiculous, John. But listen, we're here, we're in Fight Island, we're being professional. And, yes. It's good. It's a good time.
Good. By the way, I'm just going to let the world know. I'm going to pull back the curtain. You might say, was he just opening a award-winning Pabst Blue Ribbon? But no, he wasn't. He was opening a Sprite to go with his vodka. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, you gotta watch the figure.
John. That's what it is. The figure. Yeah, let's go with that. He says while also drinking the pint of beer.
Yes. You said it. We are in Fight Island. You know what? I enjoy saying we are in Fight Island. It is Fight Island. I know that at the end of the day, we're in Abu Dhabi. We're in Yahya's Island. We're in Abu Dhabi, where you and I both were this past September. Yeah. So it's not as if we're in some new place, but. I don't know. I just feel like there's been so much build up to this, so much anticipation, so much mystery, so much discussion that I honestly just like saying, you know what, man? We're in Fight Island.
Well, we were both in Fight Island before it was Fight Island in September. And I have to say, coming here, I thought I was going to really not buy into the whole thing of Fight Island. What a great marketing ploy, but that's about it. But my God, the branding they have in every inch of this safe zone we're in, it's hard not to, and the temperature is not as god-awful as I thought it was going to be, right. So you can actually, breathe outside. So I have to say, it's a little bit easier to buy into the concept of Fight Island than I thought. We'll get into it, but the branding is everywhere. And it does feel just a little bit different. I think everyone's sort of, it's a bit like Christmas, right? We'll buy into the magicalness of it, and we'll all get along knowing, wink and a smile. Yeah, we're all playing along, but we're playing along on the same tune, and it feels like that's what Fight Island is.
I dig it, and so much to talk about. We're definitely going to talk about the fights because, of course, it's a big fight card, and the return of in-person interviews. I got to say, for the first time since March, we got to talk to athletes in person. Yes, we had to wear masks. Yes, we were all social distance, all that. But I have to say, in terms of my excitement on Thursday night, I have sat here for the past couple of months and talked about fights after we've done these online media sessions. And listen, I'm not blaming the UFC. They had to make emergency adjustments. They did the best they could do. But as far as just my own feeling like I'm really bought into matchups, that I understand what's going on, that I have those insights again, I'm so much more keyed up this week.
Well, listen, you and I have spoken about this multiple times. I think we've even mentioned it on the podcast. For me, since Jacksonville, right? After Jacksonville, when they started doing the regular shows at the Apex, I actually became very jaded with the sport because I felt it was demanding. Listen, I'm not a nurse or whatever, but I felt like it was demanding a lot of me to get up at 6 a.m. for not the best cards in the world and have to be awake for nearly 24 hours for a weigh-in and a post-fight press conference. The reason I got into this was for the pre-fight interviews. That's the best bit. So I felt a little bit jaded with the sport because I felt we were sort of half back and half not. It was sort of like we're kind of back, but on a technicality. And again, not blaming the UFC. In fact, I'm very grateful to the UFC because we owe them our jobs right now. I don't think that's too outrageous to say.
It's not. If we didn't have an industry to cover, I don't think we'd be working.
So I'm complaining at I'm complaining unnecessarily, but I did become a little bit jaded. And then this week we had our first in-person interviews, as you said, and I think you and I were both like little school kids when we were leaving. We're like, I wasn't even thinking about that fight. Now I am, and it. For people who don't cover the sport, I think you guys probably can relate because from our numbers we see, you don't click on.
That's right.
You don't click on video interviews.
I think people feel the same way we do.
It's just less personable, right?
It's not resonating the same way. And I think, number one, part of it probably has to do with every website literally has the exact same 100%. Interviews. So that's part of it. But the other thing too is, just the athletes themselves. If people don't know this, when they're doing those WebExes, they can't see the person that's asking the question. So even if it was a Skype, a Zoom, StreamYard, that all these online softwares that people are using, at least there would be a little bit of interaction. Those fighters are literally sitting there just staring at a blank computer screen. They can't see anything.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it difficult to just feel any emotion and to interact. You're talking to nobody.
Well, also, if you're a fighter, right, you probably, for that particular media scrum on the internet, you've been dragged out of bed, you're tired, you don't really want to be there, you get plopped in front of a computer, you're half asleep anyway, you're on autopilot because you just are. But unfortunately, when you're a fighter, you get dragged into a room full of, let's say, 12 people, you're going to get that tiny little adrenaline spike of like, oh, I'm under the spotlight.
That's right.
Even
the lenses are there, the lights are
unless
there.
Unless you're
the
Rose
microphone's
Namajunas,
there.
which you don't give a shit. But I mean, the rest of them, you're under the spotlight. You feel compelled to be compelling in some way, and you can. It is night and day. I would say to anybody who consumes content, watch the Holloway WebEx Virtual Media Day versus his in-person thing. I haven't watched the fucking version of everything, but I would wager one is more captivating than the other.
No question. Well, listen, I talked to my staff that was monitoring that, and they were like, that thing was 100 times better.
Yeah.
It's just natural. All right, so let's set the scene right here, by the way. We are, as we said, in Abu Dhabi, in Fight Island, Yas Island. We're in the hotel zone. We didn't get the luxury of staying at the 5-star.
No candy bars for us.
No candy bars like UFC President Dana White. We're not at the W, which is a swanky hotel. But I'm going to be honest with you. The place that we got is not too bad. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on our whole experience because I want to say if you are interested in that, I have been keeping a daily running blog, and I don't normally like to pimp my content here or whatever, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it because I'm assuming most of you have at least seen that. But I literally have been doing step-by-step, day-by-day, pictures, photos, all experience. So if you're curious about what the behind the scenes is like, check out the Fight Island Chronicles on MMA Junkie. I think you'll find them entertaining. It's I've been trying to share things. It's not necessarily my strong suit of being like a travel blog host, but I think you'll enjoy it. But I think we got kind of lucky because let it sink in. We're here for 3 weeks. All right. I mean, we've only been here for a couple of days. We're here for 3 weeks. We ended up getting the Staybridge Suites, which at first, I'll be honest, I was like,
there was some grumbling, wasn't there, John?
They downgraded us. They're staying over there in the ritzy W, right on top of the racetrack. It's fancy. It's
Sheik's
5-star.
yachts outside.
Oh, Sheik's. I mean, come on. I was like, man, we got hosed. But then we got to our rooms, and we basically, our rooms are essentially like one-bedroom apartments, which is nice because obviously we had to quarantine for 48 hours and then some 58 hours.
Listen, just a little bit extra.
Yeah, a little bit extra. Check out the blog if you want to hear what happened there. But we got lucky. Now the only downfall of the Staybridge Suites is it does not have any frosty beverage consumption opportunities there.
Yes.
However, right next door to us is the Crown Plaza. The Crown Plaza does have the lovely Stills, I believe is the name of this place, and we've been in here essentially every night since we got out. Because the first night we came here, we sat down to have a frosty beverage because I hadn't had one in a couple days. And we said, what do you got? And they were like, well, do you want happy hour? Like, well, it's happy hour. 2 for $1 Peroni. Peroni it is. Yeah. So we have been having.
And $7 US.
$7 US.
Which I think actually before COVID, I believe a Peroni would cost you a kidney in Abu Dhabi. So it's something that sort of.
It is so expensive to have frosty beverages here. So when you can do a 2 for $1 Peroni, I will say this: for the next 3 weeks, Peroni is by far my favorite frosty beverage on earth. So that's where we are inside. As we sit here right now, and it's still very early in the evening. I mean, it's prime time. All the tables are socially distanced, that sort of thing. But it's literally us.
Doubly so.
Yeah. It's more than 6 feet apart. It's 10 feet apart, 12 feet apart, easy. Like they're going way. They're being on the safe side. But it's literally just us and one other people. So, like I said, I don't want to spend hours talking about our experience because, like I said, if you are really interested in seeing the behind the scenes, please do go check out the Fight Island Chronicles if you haven't already. But I did want to talk about it briefly and just say, because certainly, I mean, this is first of all, it's our life for the next 3 weeks, but it's you and I are in a rare position. We're one of the few people that saw the beginning in Jacksonville, lived the first run in the Apex, is now here. And just to be sure, to anybody that hasn't seen social media stuff, that hasn't read that diary, dude, it is on another level here.
Yeah.
Like I have to say, I don't want to get all political.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
I don't want to go too far down that road. But all I'm saying is this. I'm not a person that's scared of COVID-19, but I'm also a person that recognizes it actually does exist and it actually is spreading around the world. I will say this. How the hell would you get COVID-19 here, dude? Everybody's been tested multiple times. Everybody's wearing masks all the time. Everybody's spread apart.
Yeah.
I feel incredibly safe.
Well, I would feel completely comfortable not wearing a mask anywhere.
Right.
But I'm prepared to play the game and do my part because, well, again, without being too political, but that's what a lot of people in the world think you should do. But what I will say is, again, without getting into the politics, we've both been in Vegas since it started, essentially, with a brief trip to Florida. When you get here and you see how much stricter they are here and compared to the States, you know, when you're in one space for a period of time and you deal with the restrictions that are put on you there, you assume that's kind of like how it is everywhere.
Right.
And then you get here and like not every motherfucker's in a hazmat suit when you get off the bus.
Crazy.
And it's so much stricter. You get in the elevator, as soon as you get out, they hose the thing down, and it's stuff that you just wouldn't see in the States.
The thing is, the protocols here are incredible, man, and what they've done here is amazing. I mean, literally, when you walk in a hotel, they're like, sanitize your hands. I mean, they're checking your temperature, and they make you
you can't walk
sanitize
into a
your
building
hands.
without sanitizing your hands.
They make you sanitize your hands. I mean, just over-the-top stuff. Today, when we walked through, they have a mister that missed you with sanitizer that I thought we were just walking through a metal detector.
I think I'm sterile now.
All of a sudden, you're like, wait, when did I get sprayed? It's on another level. I feel so comfortable that everything is so safe here, but I will say there's no way you could pull this off in the United States. There's absolutely. I mean, even if you had the financial. Now, again, they have nearly unlimited financial resources here, so they can do something. But I'm telling you, even if you had nearly unlimited financial resources, I just don't think logistically you could be as strict as it is here.
Well, logistically, and also, I think, you know, culturally as well, right? I think people here are more inclined to just, not trying to diss on America or whatever, but I think people are more inclined. I feel like if you put a safe zone around the Strip in Vegas, someone's going to be like, I bet I could get out of the safe zone and get back in. You know, it's just kind of the way it is, you know? So,
without question.
So, yeah, I just think it's a cultural difference, and but it is. You know, we went on a tour today, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and we spoke to one of the guys from Abu Dhabi, sort of their tourism face, I suppose, and he was saying all the sort of shtick you say, but it does feel very much like, if I could describe Abu Dhabi in one way, it's very controlled,
right.
But not in an aggressive way, not in a hyper tyrant way, but it just seems like everyone is aware that they need to behave. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like there's a strict teacher in the room at the back of the room that you're not addressing, but you're just aware that you have to behave. And I think that with the COVID stuff sort of adds into it, you know?
It is. So, all right, let's go into that. The whole reason this thing is happening, because, you know, we all knew that the UFC and Abu Dhabi had a partnership. It was, you know, they've obviously held events here before. There's a 5-year agreement going on, but Fight Island came apart. It's funny because I think the early theories was it must be Abu Dhabi, and then people started coming up with the beaches and the palm trees and the whatever, and then we go full circle and ends up going back to Abu Dhabi. But, you know, I think the curious question was, and Mark Fellows, who's a longtime supporter of the show, you know, he had asked me directly this week. He said, you know, what is the financial arrangement? And I knew that, and we're still going to talk to Lawrence Epstein tomorrow, UFC executive, and we're going to ask him the same question, who I think might be more insightful than even Dana in that regards. No disrespect to Dana, but he's not doing the actual nuts and bolts of the financial deals.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. We did get to talk to the director of the Tourism Commission today and asked him about it, and he just said, look, it's expensive, and we spend a lot of money. I don't know how much of the UFC had to put out here, but it's very clear that the Abu Dhabi government underwrote, if not all of this, at least the lion's share of it, to be sure. But, you know, and they're open. They're honest about it. They said, listen, we're doing this to show the world that we are a top destination for tourism, and we're also a top destination for this type of situation. So it's worth it for us to lay out the money, to invest, to show the world that, look what we can do. And I will tell you, it's a hell of a display for them to show.
He made multiple things, like we're open to all sports, you know. So this isn't a UFC thing. This is hey, you want to have a boxing fight here? We can do you. F1, probably rugby, soccer. Like they made it very clear that this is a flag to other sports. Like, hey, if you need to put your show on, we got you. And I'll give you this, John. This has been my working theory that I haven't really shared. all week. But now you say that it looks like Abu Dhabi put up a lot of the cost. I believe the reason Masvidal's on this card is because the UFC said you'll get 3 title fights and there's going to be a massive show. Gilbert fell off, and they were like, "We've got to get him something."
Yep.
I really believe that Masvidal's on this because essentially Dana felt obligated to give Abu Dhabi the show that he promised.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
That's complete speculation.
Well, it is complete speculation, but I will say this. I don't know that it would go so far as to say we promised 3 title fights, but they might have. I mean, we talked about it a long time ago, but when the first press release came out announcing the 5-year deal, it was the first time I'd ever seen written into a press release, they are guaranteed to have title fights on these pay-per-view cards.
Yeah.
I mean, most pay-per-view cards have title fights anyway.
Right.
But to have a guarantee, because that's a little bit scary, because if you only have one and one guy doesn't make weight or whatever,
Yeah,
like,
is it a title
you
fight?
guarantee.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Like, I don't know if it was written anywhere that they had to have 3, but I think it's very clear that
They promised him a show, right?
They promised him a show. They promised him a big show, and losing the welterweight title fight would have been big.
Well, it's just that Holloway Volkanovski, for as good a fight as it is, and especially like we said, after listening to them in person, it's more exciting. Does that feel like a star-studded main event right now?
Right.
Not really.
It's a rematch that we already saw.
A not really compelling rematch with how the first fight
Yeah,
went.
if it was a fight of the year rematch, then you go, oh yeah.
Joanna versus Zhang Weili, like you do that again? Okay. We're fine. But I think that Usman Burns wasn't setting the world on fire, but it's another title fight, right? And I think they just felt sort of obligated, like we've got to get him a replacement.
I agree. All right, so as we set the scene, let me just say it's amazing what's been done here. It's unbelievable. It's over the top. Please go check out the blog. Go check out the diary. You've been doing one as well, so I would say check out on the Mac Life as well.
Far less compelling than yours. Mine is literally, oh shit, I forgot to do the diary, and then I've had multiple. Oh, God, I shouldn't even really say it. But multiple friends, like journalists that we know, being like, try and get this word into it today, and giving me harder words to get into a diary. And that's basically the only reason I fucking write it.
That is hilarious. Yeah. That is funny. God, that reminds me of Dave Schaller back in the day. I was doing a media day in Brazil, and I was sitting in the media room while they were doing phone tours, and that's what Dave Schaller, legendary Dave Schaller, obviously I think most people listening to this would know, but the guy that was in between John Jones and Daniel Cormier, that's all you have to say if you don't know who he is. Or John Anik's doppelganger. Yeah, exactly. But that in order to keep those phone tours interesting, he would give him, like, on each phone call, he would give him, like, a word or a phrase to work into it.
Anthropomorphic. Try getting that into a fucking diary post, mate. Jesus.
Wow.
I got it there. It's good.
That's funny. The best one he had was he gave Anthony Johnson the word Speedo with Kevin Iole, and I was actually listening to it, and the way Anthony Johnson slipped it in was fast hands and a lot of Speedo. And I was like, well, technically that works, but I checked the story the next day, and Kevin Iole actually edited it to fast hands and speed.
Pussy.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I'm sure that's what he thought it was.
That's always a weird one, right? When I hate it when you got spell check or grammar check on it, and it's like someone like Masvidal who talks in sort of like, a bit more street tempo, and it's like he was. It's like he were. It's like no.
Yeah, you gotta say it the right way.
Yeah.
The other one was he gave Chad Mendez Danny Castillo's shoe collection.
That's a tough one.
And Chad Mendez worked it in.
Good for him.
Stud. All right, let's talk about the fights themselves. So you touched on it right there. Masvidal stepping in. It's interesting, right? Because there's no question about it. Masvidal stepping in makes this a far more attention-grabbing card. I mean, the casual fan, Jorge Masvidal, one of the biggest stars in the sport right now. I mean, obviously, your boss, Conor McGregor, of course, still the biggest star in the sport. There's no question about it.
Even in retirement, John.
Even in retirement. There is no question about that. I mean, listen, not just kissing up because he's here. I mean, that's literally the truth, even in retirement. I mean, we know he's probably never going to fight again, which is unfortunate for you and an outlet. But maybe one day he'll get that urge again.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly made his statements free. But no, one of the biggest stars in the sport. So it certainly brings attention, which is good for us. Brings the mainstream opportunities, all those things. I will say this. I'm intrigued. I was very intrigued by the Gilbert Burns matchup, and I hope that Gilbert Burns doesn't lose his place in line. Now, here's where I get really confused because I really was a guy that said, well, Leon Edwards needs his opportunity too.
Dude,
I don't know where the hell he's at this point.
Why isn't he here? He should be fighting on the 25th with Till or something.
I'm telling you, man. So I was disappointed. But Gilbert Burns, because to me, Gilbert Burns, his jiu-jitsu's on another level. And so, I think of Usman and his grappling and his pace and his top game. But I don't know if he wants to add that top game on top of Gilbert Burns. So I will be honest with you. From a pure stylistical matchup standpoint, I was actually more intrigued by Gilbert Burns. But from a now we got an
spectacle.
Event, now we got a spectacle, and listen, we'll talk about the X and O's as well, because I think it's intriguing as well. It's not like I'm so disappointed Masvidal's in here. That's not the case. I'm not as intrigued by a stylistical matchup. I feel this is more striker versus grappler, stamina, since you're coming on short notice, that sort of thing. I don't feel like there's as much mystery, but from excitement and fans being enthused, there's no question this is an upgrade.
Yeah, well, listen, Burns and Usman actually reminded me of Usman versus Woodley, where it's like, dude, they seem so evenly matched on so many levels. I don't know which way it's going to go. So I understand exactly what you're saying. With Masvidal, all signs point to short notice, big paycheck. It's not the worst thing if he loses on this. He's probably not going to get knocked out. So I think that's the bit. But the one thing that gets in my head about Masvidal taking this fight is, and I will link it back to Conor, when Conor was on his rise and he'd say something and it would happen. And I think it was before, I used to describe, he just had this sort of touch of destiny about him, where he's like, he'd said it, it would happen, and it was...
He willed it into existence.
It was over and over again.
Into existence.
And I think when you have a fighter on that sort of momentum, they break your expectations. And Masvidal's last year in 2019 was that 3 times over. I mean, we've never seen a guy that late in his career become that. He's huge. This is a bit of an anecdotal evidence, but I've only learned this as I've gotten further and further into my career. When you have people who don't watch the sport hitting you up to say how excited they are, that is actually a genuine indicator of the interest. I've had a guy who hasn't watched the sport, he only watches Conor fights, and he's like, I'm buying this now. Like, that is an indicator of the interest Masvidal can bring. So for me, I think I'm not as sad to lose the Burns fight, because I always felt it should have been this fight. I was actually we spoke about being jaded earlier by the sport. I was really pissed off that they wouldn't just pay the fucking guy. I felt Masvidal had earned it. I felt Dana was being a bit unreasonable, but he had backing to do so with the current climate. I can't fault him for that, but I just felt it was unfair for Masvidal. So I always felt it was this fight should have been the one. And so, I mean, even me, like I got off the plane, so tired, and you get Masvidal in, you're like, I can't believe this sport is the best, dude. Like, where does that happen? Just 6 days? Yeah, sure, we'll give you some Blockbuster.
It is crazy, right? Like, we were at the airport, we were on the plane that they were supposed to be on. We're like, we had heard some rumblings. We were trying to get, we're trying to get some reporting.
It's like they were
done.
about to give you like the Daredevil on Netflix, and they went, actually, do you know what? Have the Avengers. You can have the movie. It's crazy.
It is crazy, man, how things turn out. Let me ask you one thing real quick, and I want to deviate from the matchup briefly. Masvidal's situation has been included in part of this whole argument of fighter pay, and
I bet they hope he doesn't win, dude.
Well, that's what I wonder. I mean, do you feel that that he? And I don't even know how to phrase this the right way, because we always said, look, we don't really believe that fighters are going to be able to organize and unionize any time in the near future or whatever. But it did seem like he was digging his heels in, and he was, I think, the first one to really go out publicly and talk about, like, hey, this 18% revenue share, and can't we bring it up?
But was he doing that for fighters, or was he doing that for him, right?
Well, and that's why I was saying, like, it's been an interesting dynamic over the past couple weeks is, was he trying to, really change the system, or was he really just trying to do it for him? And I don't blame him for doing it for him.
I think he would be one of the people who'd be like, fuck yeah, it was for me.
Bro, what he did in 2019, and you said it, and I wrote a piece that's going to be on the website, I think, tomorrow, just kind of talking about this, where it's like, it's so amazing how much time he put in the sport, but how he reinvented himself. The way that he reinvented. And he always has the personality. Like, if you go back and watch, old footage and old interviews, man, he always had – it was always there a little bit. But I think for whatever reason, I don't know if he didn't feel comfortable or just didn't think it was –
the haircut, dude. I'm telling you.
Well, the haircut changed everything. That's what I don't know if he didn't think it was necessary or he didn't feel comfortable doing it.
Super necessary.
Super necessary. But he went out and started doing it, and it did – listen, it did change. If you look at, the time off after the Wonder Boy fight until he came back for Till, that's when the hair got long, the beard got long, Street Jesus was born.
Yes,
now it's the resurrection. Now we're baptizing. Now and some of that is showmanship, but he's a showman. He's a fighter. He's a prize fighter. I mean, you think about where his roots go. His roots go back to collecting money in a backyard, for cash bets.
Isn't that why when you see people, he's scared of Usman?
That's ridiculous.
It's like, dude, that aggravates me on so many levels. Like, and not just like, he's scared of Usman, or Conor's scared of Khabib, or Gaethje, or like anyone's scared of anyone. These guys fight in a cage for a living, and you best believe they convince themselves pretty handily that they're the best thing to walk this earth.
Right.
They're not scared of anyone. And to be honest, a fighter is well within their, especially at the age of Masvidal, especially after the career he's had. He's not got a long time left. He's well entitled to ask for as much as he can rip out of this sport.
Yep.
And more for you for faulting him. It's wrong that you fault him, because if you take the side of the corporation of the UFC, and I'm not even anti-UFC, but if you take the side of them every time, you're just belittling the guys trying to get paid. And it's the UFC have more money than these guys.
So, I don't want to say a failure, but was it a misstep? Because it did feel like there was some real energy moved in this direction. Now, again, we all said there's no way they're going to unionize. There's no way they're going to organize. There's too many people that'll step up. Gilbert Burns was the perfect example. And, again, you can't fault Gilbert Burns. He was just trying to get
But if it wasn't going to be Gilbert, it would be Leon and so on and so forth.
It'd be somebody else. Exactly right. So do you feel that –
just not Colby.
Do you feel like this is a misstep on Masvidal, or not only say misstep because he's got to look out for himself, but does this swerve that momentum? Does this stall all that conversation we were having?
I think it does, but I think if you spoke to Masvidal, which we will this week, I think he'd be the first to say, I wasn't ever saying I was the union guy. I was saying what I felt was fair for me. Jones is the guy who's like, if this helps younger fighters, stuff like that. But I do feel that we spoke about this when they first started. You had Cejudo, Jones, Masvidal, Conor for a separate reason, but also Conor. And it was the first time in a long time I can remember like a multi-pronged sort of assault on the staple and hierarchy of the UFC. As soon as one of those go, then they figured out Masvidal's issue. They can figure out John. So whatever Jones has to say now, they'll work it out. It's either a united front or it isn't, and it's never going to be a united front. I'm over the union talk. It's just not going to happen. Even Aldo, Mr. Pro-Union, yesterday was like, nope, not the time for a union. So, but I do think Masvidal was probably the biggest voice, and he was also the only guy specifying revenue.
That's right.
It
wasn't just complaints. It wasn't. He was saying very specific things, which I respected the hell out of him saying that.
Yeah, it's not I just want more. Like with Jones, like this whole sort of wishy-washy, does he want Deontay Wilder money? Does he want half Deontay Wilder money? Masvidal said, I want like more on the back end because I'm bringing in more on the back end. Your markets are too high. Very specific stuff. Once you take that out, the rest of it, like, it doesn't have any substance anymore. It's just guys complaining about their pay. And Dana is, as we know, the best at disregarding it and making it seem like a non-issue.
I hope that's the lasting impact that Masvidal had is quoting that 18% number and talking about,
deal, man.
Can we get this higher?
Yeah.
Can we move this? Because you're right. Just saying I want more. Then Dana comes back and goes, which one of you thinks you make too much money? And it's, you know what I mean?
You'd think they would learn, dude. They've seen his counter to that like 100 times over. In fact, when I thought Jones was on the right path when he started specifying on Twitter like what he wanted, like, I want more money because of this, because of this, because of this.
Right.
Dude, go all out. Say the figure. Because if John says, I want $15 million, we have to ask Dana, why is he not worth $15 million? You know, you can't go half in, half out.
And I even saw an interview with John, and I think it was the one he did maybe with Steve-O, where he was saying that, like, people don't even know what they make. You have the right to go financially audit all their books. They say, if you're part of the pay-per-view partner. But didn't he say that? Am I wrong? I think that
he said he started to audit them, I believe, because of that. And it's not the first time I've heard a fighter say that sort of stuff. I think that's a lot of things guys don't realize as they're coming up. Like, you know, when the UFC are the ones who are in control of the numbers and then telling you the numbers, it's a conflict of interest. And it's only when you get to this sort of certain level that you're like, you know.
But you need to. You need to do that. You need, if it's paying an accountant, if it's whatever, to go do it, you need to do it.
I think Masvidal said in an interview, I forget who with, so apologies, but he said, and it's a fundamental thing that I think fighters forget, right? Dana White's not, is not your friend. I mean, he can be, but fundamentally, promoter, fighter will always be at odds on some degree.
Right.
Because your interest as a fighter is to get as much money for you as you can, and your interest as a promoter is to get as much money for your promotion as you can. So fundamentally, you have to be at odds.
So true.
I think a lot of guys forget that, and I think Dana's very good at making them forget that. And then you get managers involved, and sometimes they're not the best at being in the middle and stuff like that. So, listen, it's just a complicated
It is. I think this is a moment in time, and it's funny because Dana basically dismisses. He says, this happens all the time. They'll change. And he's right. We're moving past it already. But I think there were a couple lessons that happened during this moment in time. The public sharing of information, the specific quoting of financial numbers. I think that needs to continue if these guys want to improve themselves. So, all right, we don't want to spend too much. We don't want to spend too much time talking about the business, but I thought that side of it was interesting. All right. Okay. We know the challenges, right? I mean, Masvidal is the stud. He's the star. He's. I hate to say it, even though he's not the champ. I think he's the A side. You know what I mean?
I don't think that's it.
I don't even have to say that. I don't even have to say I think. I know he's the A side.
Yeah.
I don't mean to disrespect that. Okay, but the deck is stacked against him. Wasn't training for a 5-round fight. Was clearly training, but not training for a 5-round fight, and not training for a 5-round fight against Kamaru Usman.
Yeah.
Of course, Masvidal has power. Masvidal has, technical striking ability. He's clearly the better fighter on the feet. His defensive wrestling is probably underrated to a degree. It's not like
I think people just look back at that Maya fight and they just go, "Oh, well, Maya took him down, right?" And it's like they just that's all that's in anyone's head. What have you done for me lately, sort of thing, you know?
I agree. So,
but Askren didn't take him down.
That's true. I mean, look. As long as they were in the cage together, the whole time they grinded that thing out. Not a single takedown. But you know what the problem was? Askren just didn't have enough attempts. That was the issue. I think he would have gotten him one. I was surprised how few takedown attempts Askren went.
It's like he was too confident on his feet. It really was.
All right.
Sorry, Ben.
Let's flip the other side. Yeah, sorry. Let's flip the other side of it. Usman. All right. Usman, I like Usman, man. I really do. And I know he's easy to hate on. A lot of people hate him. That 30% comment back in St. Louis.
I don't get it, dude. I really don't get the hate, man. He's not that bad.
I don't think so. I mean, listen, people, his trash talk's cringy. And I'll give him that, you know what I mean? Like, but whatever. I mean, there's a handful of people that are really good at it.
Name like half of them isn't cringy.
There's a handful of people that are really good at it. I think people criminally underrate Usman's skills and his abilities, and he is a good human being. And behind the scenes, granted, I called a couple of fights with him at Titan, so we got to spend some time together. I got to know him a little bit better there. Of course, you cover people's careers, you get to know him. I like Usman. I hate the fact that people don't like him, to be honest. I think he's a good dude. But let's talk about the situation that he's in, because he deserves credit too for taking this fight on short notice, right? I mean, he did agree to change it. And I will say this. Here's the part that intrigues me about this, because I think the deck is incredibly stacked against Masvidal on this. That's an easy case to make. But what's intriguing about this, the reason that I'm still like, number one, because Masvidal's Masvidal, but number two,
imagine saying that a year ago, dude. Like, how quick did he become a superstar?
But you're right. But he wasn't a superstar before, but I always knew that he's going to be ready for a fight. That dude's tough. But what intrigues me about this is this, and it comes back down to the reason I was intrigued by Burns, is there's no way Usman has been working on his wrestling for 8 weeks. Now, I know that's his bread and butter. I know it's in his tank at all times. But there's no way that he was planning on taking down Gilbert Burns
over and over.
So can you adjust again? Because there's no way he's planning on standing up with Masvidal. So can you change the game plan that quick and still be effective? I wonder, is this, a trap-type situation for Usman where he's like, you know what, man, don't worry about that. I can take this dude down, no sweat. And he finds out all of a sudden, like, oh, crap, I've been drilling my stand-up for the last 8 weeks, and now my timing isn't where I thought it was going to be. So because that's the whole thing is we're saying, well, man, Masvidal stepping in on a week's notice. What's he doing? But if Usman was getting ready for an entirely different kind of fight, then isn't he kind of stepping in on a week's notice too?
Well, it's one of those interesting things, right? They kind of both back themselves into a corner. Like Usman used to talk about Masvidal like, I could fuck that guy up tomorrow. So when the fight is off to him, you can't say no. So Usman was Usman had to accept this fight. Imagine if he turned this down. Imagine if it came out that Usman turned down Masvidal on 6 days. He'd never live it down. So he had to take the fight.
Right.
And I do see your point. Like, it's a different style of opponent. I would argue that in terms of who's gonna have more to overcome, it's still Jorge. Usman does have the camp. His card is off the chain. What I find interesting about this is if this mentality of like, oh, has he a late change? Is he going to be able to? If that is the case, if Usman is thinking like, oh, I wasn't training for this guy, if he went for a takedown and Jorge stuffed the first one, I would imagine that's mentally like, oh, shit. For Usman, that's going to be a thing he has to overcome. Secondly, as I said to you earlier, he doesn't like Jorge.
Right.
And the last guy he didn't like was Colby, and he stayed on the feet, and I felt he was doing that to prove a point. And I think Usman probably has a bit of a chip on his shoulder that so many people are disregarding his striking abilities, because I think he's very confident in himself, and rightfully so. So it'd be interesting to see if he does try to stand up with Jorge and what Jorge can do with that, because you would imagine Masvidal needs to capitalize ASAP.
Yes.
As soon as he has an opportunity,
so.
get it as soon as you can.
I mean, I don't think you want to try an Askren.
No.
I don't think you want to try that. But yes, I think you want to push fast. If I'm coaching Masvidal, which important to be said, Brown's not there, can't be there.
I think that's a bigger detriment than people realize.
I do too. It's unfortunate. But if I'm coaching him, I'm saying, listen, let's go 100% for 2 rounds.
I think so too.
You know what I mean? Like, if all we got is 10 minutes, let's make it a hellacious 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And let's do everything we can, because I don't think you want to say, well, we've got to be ready for 4. We've got to be ready for 5. Because if you're tempering yourself a little bit, then I think you're messing yourself up.
Well, look, let's take Jorge's last fight against Nate. Nate said, I knew I didn't have the cardio to go for 5, so I chilled out for 1, 2, and 3, and I was going to turn it on in 4 and 5. Okay, well, maybe yes, maybe no. But if that's your mentality,
flip it the other way.
Yeah, like, I mean, well, I think, especially against a guy, with no disrespect to Usman, he's not known for, like, just KOing people starch out, right? So if you're Masvidal, you probably think, like, well, look, go ham for 10 minutes, and then I've got 15 minutes to stall and just chill out and just,
Well, dude, I mean.
And also, Masvidal, infamously great at that. Like, he used to quit halfway through his fights all the time.
Yeah.
Just, like, get bored and just chill.
He could. I mean, if you think about it, if he goes balls out for 10 minutes, banks the first 2 rounds, doesn't get the finish, but clearly banks the first 2 rounds, you got to think, and again, no disrespect to Usman, I should say, but Masvidal is probably not in fear of getting knocked out.
I don't think he's getting finished.
Or a fear of getting finished. Yeah, exactly. So you think, okay, I got 2 rounds in the books. All I got to do.
Chill for 2 and take the 5th.
That's it. I got to take 1 more out of these last 3. You know what I mean? So for me, that's why I will say this. I'm incredibly intrigued by the first 10 minutes of this fight. Incredibly intrigued by the first minutes of the fight. I do think we could get to a point, and I don't want to jinx it, and I don't want to. I'm sorry to say this. I don't want to spoil anybody's pay-per-view event, but I do feel like it is possible that we could get to like 3, 4, and 5, and we're going. Yeah,
someone's being clinched against the cage.
That's it. Like, I know what's happening here. I know what's happening here.
I'd be unfortunate to see that, but if I was a betting man, I'd say that's probably where it could end up, because Usman's one of those guys as well. Like, he's hard to imagine being finished. Mm-hmm. It's the same as Khabib. Like, it's hard to imagine someone knocking that guy out. Whereas, like, someone like Tony or Justin, we've seen them hurt, we've seen them vulnerable, so it's easier to picture them being KO'd. Usman, for me, is just a hard guy to imagine being KO'd. He just looks like a tough sort of dude. But then Masvidal did spark Till out, and I'd have said Till was one of those guys too. So
swear to God, dude, if Masvidal sparks,
if he did him in 2 minutes, he's the second biggest guy in the sport, nearing first.
Different stratosphere, right? I mean,
he would get those two together.
He would be. Oh my God, can you imagine those two coming together?
Yeah, I can imagine Dana's heart attack. Sure.
Oh my God, can you imagine them coming to hold him up? Give me all the money. Give me all the money.
Dude, like, you think you have a problem with Jorge now. If he wins, man.
Oh, my.
God bless him. Like, I'm all for it. But
can you imagine Masvidal and McGregor and the negotiations that
and then Nate storming through the back of the room.
By the way, I'm that's only, of course, if McGregor is willing to end his retirement because he is so enticed by a match with that. I know it would be difficult because, listen, once you're in that retirement life.
It's just hard to picture, John.
I imagine. I'd stuff. I don't
even. Is he training? I don't even know.
Probably not. Yeah. Guys in his hammock every day, just reading, enjoying the retired life.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, I'm looking forward to it. I'm very intrigued. Like I say, to me, the right pick is Usman by decision, but I'm intrigued early on.
Every so often, one of these fights comes along that's just like a shockingly big deal that you didn't realize it was a big deal until it was nearly upon you. And when those come, I think the best thing to do is just enjoy it, right? So Masvidal Diaz, when that got announced, I was like, yeah! Ironically enough, in Abu Dhabi in September, that got announced on Fight Night. That was a fun night. But I remember I remember being so excited for that, and the same again for this dude. There's just it's we always talk about the big fight feel. Like when Bruce is in the middle of those two, it's about ready to go. I'm gonna be shaking with nerves. It's gonna be awesome.
I'm digging it, man. Well, listen, we've been talking about it, but everybody's heard the rumors, and the wait is finally over. Fight Island is primed and ready to go this Saturday. The fighters will be taking their talents to Abu Dhabi. Hell, they're already here for UFC 251, and the lineup of fights this weekend is one of the best yet. And DraftKings, the leader in one-day fantasy sports, is putting you in the center of the action starting this Thursday, that's right now, with a free shot at a $1 million top prize with your first deposit. If you haven't tried it already, I'm telling you, fantasy MMA is easy to play, especially when there's a potential $1 million top prize there. You just pick 6 fighters, stay under the salary cap, pile up points for advances, takedowns, and more. You're not just picking winners and losers. You're showing your actual expertise in the sport. So there's no better way to put that knowledge on the test than for a shot at $1 million. Now listen, if DraftKings, you know, if you think MMA isn't for you, DraftKings does have other options. They got fantasy golf and that sort of thing. If MMA is not your thing and you're listening to this podcast, I'm a little shocked, to be honest with you.
How did you get here?
But I just want to let you know, our friends at DraftKings, they got other stuff for you too. There's millions of dollars up for grabs, and full sports are getting back, so there's lots of things you can do. So here's what you got to do. If you want to get a piece of this, download the DraftKings app now and use the promo code Frosty.
Hello.
Come on now, Frosty. There's no better. I mean, you know, people use the name of their show. They might say Morgan. They might say Road. Hell no. They said, what do you want? DraftKings came to us and said, what do you want? We said, can we use Frosty? They said, you're damn right you can. We love the Road Show. You can use Frosty. So use the promo code Frosty and you get a free shot at $1 million. Again, that's the top prize for this weekend's UFC 251 contest with your first deposit. That's promo code Frosty to get a free shot at $1 million with your first deposit. Now here's where you do the little tiny read. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. All right,
welcome back.
Yeah, you know that's we cut to commercial. That's that was just the commercial. I totally weren't doing that. All right, listen, UFC 251 is a big card. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about the main event because it is so intriguing, and of course, you do have the BMF champion against the welterweight champion. But the co-main event, pretty sweet as well. Featherweight title is on the line. Your new champ, Alexander Volkanovski, a man that I've been a fan of, watching his run to the top. 18-fight winning streak. That's just obscene. Rematch with Max Holloway. Okay, I'm going to be honest. When this fight was first announced, we knew it was happening right away. I mean, Alexander Volkanovski going into the fight said, I'm going to have to beat the guy twice. I know that. Max Holloway, a lot of people saying greatest featherweight of all time, after defeating Jose Aldo. And I will say, man, the way he thoroughly dismantled Jose Aldo twice, it did make you think, man, the guy has claim. Now, Volkanovski has since said, look, dude, I mean, greatest of all time, hold up. Aldo had a lot of defenses, man. He was on top for a long time. But when you see Holloway thoroughly dismantle somebody like that 2 times, you at least start talking about the options. So they fight for the first time, and Volkanovski looked fantastic. And to me, damn near shut him out. Now, Holloway had some nice work late, but at that point, Volkanovski had a broken hand. So they announced the rematch, and I got to say, I wasn't fired up for it. I was just like, all right, they're going to fight again, but whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, this week, and I think, again, it goes back to us being able to actually interview these people in person, actually have some physical interaction with them and talk to them. I'm pretty fired up about this now because Volkanovski, again, and here's what's hilarious. Volkanovski, incredibly respectful. Yeah. Holloway will never talk trash in his life. Yeah. So they are dropping the most subtle bombs at each other ever. Like, it's you know what? As a passive-aggressive man myself from time to time, I love the little things. It's like, oh, he thinks he won the fight, did he? Like, oh, I had trouble seeing that one, man. Hey, to each his own. Yeah. It's that kind of stuff. But it's been, they kind of have there's a little rivalry there.
There is, I mean, we're going to reuse the word. There is a frostiness to them. It's very interesting because they're both, in my opinion, approaching each other with with the same sort of mentality, but in very different expressions. Volkanovski outright says, I thought he was a good champion. He's a sore loser. I think he's salty. And then you got Max being like, gosh, listen, I just thought I won the fight. If that makes me salty, then I guess we're all salty. Maybe it's just me. I thought I won the fight. And it's interesting because they're like those two drunk women at a Christmas party where they're like, oh, yeah, I like those shoes. I had some of them last year. And then eventually it escalates, it goes, and they just explode. But they are making very sort of bitchy little remarks to each other. And I'm here for it.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. And I'll tell you right now, that is why the Mac Life is nominated for a World MMA Award. Because I would have never said that they were like two bitchy old women at a Christmas party. But
I didn't say old, John. I just said,
in my head, that's the way they came out.
Maybe I did.
Listen, I'm intrigued by it. There is a little bit of, listen. Not that every fight has to have trash talk, but it makes it a little bit fun. I mean, there's certainly a little rivalry here. I will say, again, from the very early on in Volkanovski's UFC career, I mean, I didn't watch him coming up on the regional stage in Australia, I'll admit. But from very early on in his UFC career, I thought, man, this is a guy that I think can be a champion at some point. And it came maybe even faster than I thought. But here he is.
Isn't that always the way?
Oh, my goodness. You just did there. I heard it coming out of my mouth. I'm not going to. Stop. But he's here. Max Holloway, on the other hand, I hate to say that he's at a crossroads, but I do feel that way to a degree. You know what I mean? I mean, look, Aldo, lost definitively twice and went to another division, right?
Yeah.
Holloway obviously would not be going down to another division. But I do wonder if this is that moment where Holloway, if he doesn't reclaim the belt, if we're saying – that's the end of his featherweight run.
Yeah, I mean, I did hear Cormier on one of his recent podcasts with Ariel. He had an interesting point where it's like, you'd assume if Max loses twice to the champion, you got to move up because you're not getting another shot traditionally. That's always the way, and probably rightfully so. But then he made a point that, Volkanovski's got, there are some serious contenders that he's not faced. So Max actually might just need to chill out and win one more, and then, Zabit might beat Volkanovski. Korean Zombie, Brian Ortega, all those guys could give Volkanovski problems. So he was like, it's not necessarily a death sentence for Holloway. Thank you very much. It's not a death sentence for Holloway at 145, because it's such a murderer's row there. But yes, if you're looking at this through the traditional lens, Holloway loses, and if he loses again in he doesn't get knocked out, but if he loses in a shutout, as I thought the first one was really,
I did too.
If he loses where it's like, oh, you just don't have anything for the champion, you just don't have anything to offer them. Yeah, his options are limited at that point.
And to me, I mean, we've had situations like that before where we're like, dude, you're never going to beat that guy, so move up. And it's looking ahead, but I love the move of Alexander Gustafsson moving up to heavyweight.
I think so too.
You're not going to beat John Jones.
I was disappointed to hear he wanted to go back down to lightweight.
I was too, because I was like, dude, this might excite. You're not going to beat John Jones, so go to another division. But here,
yeah.
In fact, that's all of you at 205. Just leave. Just leave. No,
he's retired too.
No, but to me, this one's a little bit different because it's not just, hey, I don't like your chances against Volkanovski. It's like, dude, you're getting bigger and older, and this weight cut is not for you. And so that's why I think this one is especially. It's not just, hey man, you probably shouldn't fight him again. It's, hey man, would your body be, should you pull a Dustin Poirier where, you killed yourself to get to 45 and you found yourself incredibly more effective at 55?
Yeah,
or even a Conor McGregor for that matter.
If Holloway if Holloway loses this rematch, I would like him to take a year out to put on bulk and move to 55 properly. Because I did think he looked too light against Poirier in their fight at 55. I did think there's a size disparity. So I'd like him to take a year and lift the weights and do the damn thing, as he says. But I was literally saying that sort of made me think how stupid I was. I lost my point. But he's. But he's only 28.
Yeah.
He's so young.
That's what's funny because Holloway is the champion, and you think, oh, the up-and-coming kid, Volkanovski. No, Volkanovski's older. Yeah. He just.
But 28's young. He's not in his prime yet.
Yeah.
And then you think, well, fuck, he's been hitting the head a lot. He had that Ortega war. He smashed him, but he got and he had the health issue that's never really been addressed. And the only thing we know about it is he makes sure he has loads of tests afterwards, which doesn't sound awesome. So he's 28, but he's a bit of a weathered 28-year-old. But at 28, man, he's got 6 more years as a top guy.
That's right.
Probably more.
That's right.
So he's an interesting sort of person. He's in an interesting position, should I say? It was Holloway. You know, as much as he's acting like this fight is a trip to the grocery store on Saturday, there's a lot on this for Holloway. You know, because I mean, he could be one of those guys who he loses, can't get another title shot, so he moves to 55, and then be completely ineffectual at 55.
True.
They could all be monsters to him.
True.
So he
all of a sudden your ranginess doesn't matter anymore. All of a sudden
you haven't got the power. You can't out. You can't. Like going up against Gaethje and Ferguson. Like there's a
I will say this: I won't write him off instantly, even if he's not playing mind games. Even if he really did just have a Zoom training camp.
But if he did that I actually believe that's irresponsible on his coach's part to be like, yeah, we're going to let you go, and the biggest fight of your career, 25 minutes off the back of a Zoom coaching period. That's like.
I know, but I mean, I talked to him before we had this session the other day. I actually talked to him on the phone, and I asked him about that, and he said, listen, I understand this blew everybody's mind, but, like, does everybody understand I've been fighting since I was 16 years old, and, like, I know what to do, and,
Well, it's the same argument being made, right, against Rocco. Like, I know how to punch and stuff,
right.
But it's just like, man, Volkanovski's going to be – he's not going to get tired, dude, and your whole game is about making them drown in the deep waters. If you can't put that cardio on them late on – I don't know technically what can he do different against Volkanovski? Check a kick? I mean.
Well, what's funny is, I picked Volkanovski in this fight, but I had kind of decided I wasn't going to write off Max because I wrote off Mike Perry.
Good one.
I wrote off Mike Perry because the whole
try doing that
training
again today.
camp and yeah. Dude, that situation's bad, man. We could sit here and talk about that for half an hour. But I will say this with that Mike Perry situation. Let me finish my point first. Yeah. I wrote him off because I wrote off Mike Perry against Mickey Gall because I thought, man, if he's not training with anybody and he doesn't have his coaches and all that, like, he can't do it. And then it did make me realize that, listen, long term you can't do that. You cannot conduct your career that way. But you can conduct yourself for one fight that way.
Against the right opponent.
But exactly. So that's what I said in my head, but as I heard you talking right there, then I was instantly reconsidering my own thoughts because you are right. Against an opponent that you need to make adjustments against. And, we've kind of understood that everybody is preparing under the same pandemic MMA rules, but Volkanovski actually went to the government and got the government to give him a waiver, and he was allowed to have a training partner, full camps, that sort of thing. So, I was picking Volkanovski already, but in my head I was thinking maybe I'm silly to write off Holloway because I wrote off Perry. But as you say that, man, I think you make some great points, and I don't want to write off Holloway, man. He's a great fider, but
he's a stud, dude.
Man, but this is a tall order.
It's just one of those things, right, where the first fight was sort of so one-sided, but not in the traditional one-sided. It wasn't getting beaten up or anything, but it was just like I don't know what technical adjustments he could make to change it because Volkanovski seemed to just have him beat across the board.
Right.
And you can say what you want, like, the kicks didn't hurt. They were point scoring kicks. Well, guess what? The point scoring kicks.
The point scored.
They score the points, So it's a tough one, dude. I think Volkanovski's actually. I think Volkanovski has the potential, at least, to, because he's so understated and so chilled out. I think he's going to fly under the radar for a long time. But I think Volkanovski has the potential to really become a dominant force.
I do too.
I think Volkanovski's probably as tough as fucking nails, and I don't think we've really seen it yet. I think Volkanovski's a dog, and I think Volkanovski, when I see him talk, like yesterday, or the other day when we saw him talk about Max, I don't think he's a hateful guy. I don't think he hates anyone, but I think that guy bleeds competition. I think that guy is a competitor. I don't think we've seen that out of Volkanovski yet. And, if you're 28 and you've been the champ for ages and then, you're asked about, what's different about being a champ. Oh, I've got less media now. Doesn't sound like you miss it. Aldo misses it. We asked Aldo, did you feel relieved when he lost the title? Hell no, he wasn't. It's just it's an interesting sort of contrast.
I agree. All right, real quick, I do want to talk about Perry. We've all seen the clip at this point. I don't even know what to say because I don't want to say that I've defended Perry, but I have said I like Perry. I think he's an amazing character. I think he's a fun fighter. I think I like having him around. I mean, he makes things interesting. He's an intriguing human being, man. I like talking to him. Even when it's clear he's being combative, that's fun to me. You know what I mean? To see like that type of, his psychology and what's different, all that. So all those things, man. It takes all types in this sport, right?
Right.
But there's just no defending what he did. I mean, look, I have seen people say, "Why did the guy say?" Well, then come on. But that is not.
Perhaps an overestimation of your own ability there, sir.
There you go. The guy probably shouldn't have said that, but that is not some defense to be like, so of course Mike Perry should have just gone off and play. There is just absolutely no defending what Mike Perry did in this situation. And there's so many aspects of this because the police report says he hit a woman. Obviously, we don't know all the facts yet, but the police report says it. Can't defend that. Okay, he lost his temper. I imagine some alcohol was involved. I get it. I've lost my temper when some alcohol is involved. And I understand it's hard to calm you back down in a quick fashion. I'm not saying I give him a pass. I'm saying I understand that part. You don't get to, as a trained, high-level professional fighter, swing on somebody in a bar when your life is clear. Like, if your life is in danger, dude, some old guy is standing in front of you, like, you don't get to swing on him, man. You don't get to swing on him. And then you add in the fact that he's just throwing around the N-word.
Yeah,
there's so many aspects that are so wrong. But the thing is, like, I don't want to just sit here and be like, so F this guy, F his opportunities in the sport, F blah, 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 blah. What I'm thinking is, the guy needs help, man.
Yeah,
somebody needs to get in there and help his life.
So I will flat out say I'm a Mike Perry fan. I find the guy compelling. In this sport where you have so many people, I'll fight the guy the UFC put in front of me. The cliche lines. Anyone who's a character, a unique character, who's not trying to emulate someone else who's found success, anyone who's themselves, I always enjoy it. Even if I think, like, on the surface, Mike Perry's a bit of a ridiculous human being. Like, the guy's crazy. He's got platinum tattooed on his face. Like,
God's gift on his
body. Yeah, and
man.
I just think, like, when I woke up and I saw the video, someone texted me the video and said, well, there's the Perry meltdown we were expecting, which is sad, but not inaccurate, right? I think with the whole girlfriend shtick, we thought something wasn't quite right. And the first time I watched the video, I wasn't really paying attention. I went, that's just whatever.
Yeah, because, by the way, when it came out, it was
4:30.
It was like 4 in the morning, because I actually happened to wake up around the same time because our sleep schedules are all screwed up. But, yeah, you're seeing it 4 in the morning. You're like,
yeah, so I kind of just, like, it's always the ones you most expect, like it just sucked. And then when I watched it back when I was a bit more awake with the audio up, and I really genuinely feel that I think Mike has, like, people say, oh, this guy's got issues, and it's sort of like this generic term for, like, oh, this guy's going through some shit and is not dealing with it well. No, I felt like when Mike screamed at the woman in the video, you're not on my side, you're not on my side, and if you combine that with his recent social posts, his recent attitude towards fans, I don't want any fans, I don't need any fans, from a complete armchair psychologist, I wonder if the guy's developing some sort of paranoia. It seems very much like he believes the world is against him, and that's concerning. And I'm sorry to say, perhaps the people around him, I don't know, maybe his management or something like that, should understand that this isn't a character quirk. This isn't like, a guy just being himself, crazy Mike. The guy is clear, like, who leaves their wife for 22, buys her a fucking car after you've just announced you owe the tax man $100,000. The guy is not being rational, and I understand. I don't want Mike to calm down. I love the fact he's a wild man, but mate, like you at the very least, I'll get one more thing after this point. At the very least, he needs anger management. He needs counselling.
Yes.
I actually really believe it's in the best interest of him and all the parties for the UFC not to cut him or suspend him. Get him a year's worth of help. Don't get rid of him, because if you fire Mike Perry now, what the fuck is he going to do next?
Well, that's the interesting thing when people say, they should cut him, they should get rid of him. And I understand that sentiment, like, why are we going to reward him with more financial opportunities? But when you cut him and you get rid of him, and again, I know they're not employees, they're contractors and all that, but keeping him under the umbrella, I think is better. But if you can offer him a little bit of mental health,
just say you can't fight again until you pass a psychologist evaluation for 12 months. I think that's completely in their rights, and he should obey by those rights. The second thing I want to address is the N-word stuff. We are, you and I, and all the members of the MMA media, completely guilty about letting that go, because he's been doing it for ages,
right.
And it's sort of one of those things where it's so brazen and it's like so ridiculous. It's like it's so ridiculously over the top. It's almost comical, and it's not offensive. I mean, how could it be offensive to us? But it's like, crazy on mic again, you know.
Yep.
And actually, when you see him, like when he was saying the M word, I was like, please tell me he's not saying that to an actual black person. He wasn't. But
you're right. We're
like
guilty. We should have held him more accountable
know,
all the way along.
And we've never questioned the UFC hard enough on it. We've never, you know, like remember Nate Diaz back in the day got a 50 G fine for saying a homophobic slur. Now they're all fucking saying it all the time, and no one blinks an eye. And I think it's probably more on us than I realize to, you know, with all due respect, the UFC and Dana are not going to willingly punish their fighters unless we grill them and hold their balls to the fire to make them do it.
But you know what, man? And you're right. You're dead on. You're right. And I'll tell you what, if you were nominated for Journalist of the Year, I'd vote for you. But you're not. So you should vote for me instead. But you know what, man? No, you make a great point. And you know what's funny is we're sitting here talking about it, thinking about it, as you were talking, I was thinking, you know, because I've always been the thing, okay, you can't, you don't cut the guy. Like, what does that do? But you're right. These infractions like this. Now, again, I have always said, look, these guys are cage fighters at the end of the day.
You can't hold them to
you can't hold them to the perfect PC.
Yeah.
But you're right. Dropping the N word, you know, that's not okay.
But it also, like, look.
But you know what? I would say this. I like what you said here. What I'm saying is this. Okay, a fine. I don't even know if a fine is legally okay since they're independent contractors. Cutting them, you know, you're not going to cut them right away. But I kind of like the idea of saying this. Like, look, we're going to let you go unless you take these steps.
Yeah.
Unless you go complete. Like, if somebody says, you know, a homophobic slur, hey, we want you to go. And I know because some people would say it's like John Jones going to rehab for a day or whatever. I get it. I can see some people, oh, you made me take you know, an anger management class. Like, whatever. Da, da, da. But it's something. At least it's addressing it. It's acknowledging it.
It's the first step, right?
And it's a step, right? I mean, you can't make somebody change their worldview. You can't make somebody get better. But I like that idea of saying, hey, listen, we're putting you on probation. We need you to complete this by X amount of time or terminating your contract.
Yeah.
And I see, you know, then that becomes a problem. What if Conor McGregor does something? Are they going to terminate Conor? That's not fair to ask you that. But if they're going to terminate if it's Jorge Masvidal, are they going to terminate Jorge Masvidal's contract? You know what I mean?
And that's the thing.
Of course
right?
not.
Because, look, did Jorge not assault someone backstage in London?
Yes.
He absolutely
did. That happens on the street. I mean, no, I won't even say that. It did happen backstage. It didn't happen on the street. That is illegal. What he did is illegal.
He assaulted a guy who just happens to share the same profession as him. But for some reason, when it comes to fighting and fighters, we sort of blur the lines. I think, dude, I honestly believe this, and this is a sad case of affairs. I believe if we said nothing, like we're going to see Dana White this week, we're going to interview him, we're going to do scrums together. I believe if we said nothing, Mike would probably not be punished. They would probably just leave it to the law. He didn't even get arrested on the scene.
That's crazy.
Which is fucking bananas to me. When the guy's being put into an ambulance, you don't even arrest the dude. That's great. I don't know. There's a lot to it, and it's so easy to like shit on Perry right now, but I really I kind of refuse to because I think the guy's just going through some like I actually think Darren Till might have broken him. I really do. Like, it seems to be from that, like, as innocuous as it was a joke, the new girlfriend, the Raw Dog comment, the way the fans piled on him, like the way he started talking about, like, we were sitting here having dinner the other night, and I was like, look at his tweet, and he's like, oh, you're going to drown in piss and shit forever, and stuff. So what the hell's going on with him, you know? Which I think actually was tweeted after the incident, perhaps.
Wow.
But, you know, the guy needs help, and sometimes in society, and not to sound too grandiose, but you need to realize, like, just washing your hands of an incident doesn't mean the incident goes away. Because guess what? If you wash your hands of Mike Perry, like, you cut him from the UFC, right? He's not a UFC fighter. Guess what? The next crime that he commits, which I would wager he will commit, he'll still be in the byline as ex-UFC fighter. You know, and he's got he's got a criminal record, and you know the guy just needs like you can't look at Mike Perry and be like, "That guy's got his temper under control." The guy needs help. And the people around him need to be the people making the steps to get him the help instead of just saying stuff like, oh, he's a character. Man, he's a character, but he's also a character fucking up.
You're so right about that. Man, and again, it's not fair to have you in a conversation and bring up, like, what would you do with Conor McGregor? But using that example as the biggest star in the sport, it's so hard because you're not going to let the guy go. You're not going to terminate the guy. And so, like, I'm going to – if anybody has an idea, please hit me up on Twitter. Please hit me up on patreon.com/MMA Roadshow, because I'm seriously, like, questioning this. And I've thought about this before, but now it's kind of really, like, in my brain again. Like, what is the right answer? I don't know what the answer is, because, again, it would be just cut the guy. But if it happens to be one of your champions, it has to be one of your biggest stars. You're not going to cut him.
That's an irrational thing to say. And it's also, and I sound like I'm playing favorites here. It's also irrational in a world of independent contracts, in a world of like you bring me this much pay-per-view versus you bring me this much pay-per-view. It's also it's illogical to think they're going to hold the same standards to the same people. They're just not, right? You know, Sarah Kaufman is not going to get the same as Ronda Rousey would get. You know, that's just the fucking way it is, because the UFC is the embodiment of corporate America in sports, essentially, which is whatever. So, but I just think, I think with certain fighters, Nate, Nick, Mike, their reputation is just like they're crazy. Connor, they're crazy. They can do what they want. I feel like we're guilty to be enabling them. Like Mike Perry called Michael J. White, right, the actor, a black guy, called him the N-word on Twitter, and like that wasn't even a headline for like.
Didn't even register.
That's insane.
You're
you
right.
know, that is insane. Like imagine if Colby called Kamaru that.
You're right.
Do you know what I mean? I feel like we've. You know, the whole meme of Mike Perry's 2% black, like it's funny jokes, man. It's funny jokes, and it's.
You're right. It's almost like I think we have this internal dialogue where we're like, well, it's ridiculous, so we don't want to give it a space. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you're right. We should give it space.
And also, there's a, you know, like I feel bad for the listeners. They're gonna think, well, like these cancel culture people. I'm the absolute opposite of that.
We just both sat here and said we're fans of Mike Perry.
Like check out my WhatsApp conversations, dude. Like you know. Like my career's over 10 times over.
Right.
But I just think, you know, if we're going to sit on the same side and be like, these guys are athletes, they deserve more money. Unfortunately, they're going to have like the
more
NBA, the NFL. They are way more professional. You're going to have to start expecting more professionalism.
Boy, that's a great point too. Hey man, you start becoming a 50% revenue partner or something like that. You got a 50% responsibility partnership too.
Just there's something about like overall there's just something about combat sports where the general public like consider fighters like these like scary aura people. You know, like even Floyd got away with calling Conor a homophobic slur in London. No one said a fucking thing about that. You know.
So true.
It's just like combat sports is just a weird grey area, but I feel like the UFC has regressed a little bit in that. It's very weird to me that you can have like Amanda Nunes, you know, having a surrogate child with her wife, at the same time as on the card the next week, a guy who's like calling in an interview with MMA Junkies Mike Bond, calling Till and homophobic slur and stuff like that. You know.
I don't know what to fix.
Welcome to Fight Island.
Welcome to Fight Island. All right, let's get back to the fights. I mean, that discussion will be ongoing.
Sorry for the heavy conversation, guys.
But I think it's an important discussion, and I'd love to hear people chime in on it because, again, what the fix is. But, all right, let's talk about the last title fight, Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo. I will say this. The vacant bantamweight title's on the line. I've been a little critical of the matchup just because, you know, Jose Aldo did lose. And yeah. I understood Aldo versus Cejudo in Brazil because you're trying to sell tickets in Brazil. Yeah. I got it. Yan versus Aldo, when I know that Sterling is out there and all, I don't know. I wasn't that now, stylistically, I think it's going to be fantastic. And Aldo looked pretty good this week. And it is always fun to get in front of Aldo because, you know, when you talk about Aldo on paper, when you talk about Aldo, like, but then when you stand in front of him, you're like, that's motherfucking Jose Aldo right there, dude. Like, that dude. He may not be the guy he once was, but he's still the guy. You know what I mean? And so, I'll throw this out there. I mean, I picked Yan in this fight. I think Yan is the right pick in this fight, man. I think, you know, he is kind of that next level guy, that next era guy. But I feel like maybe I've been too quick to write off Jose Aldo, and he seems in good spirits this week.
I rewatched the Marlon fight. I still had it for Marlon. I think the third round, like, Aldo was being the forward motion and aggression, but Marlon was landing more, and that's why. So I think that's where the difference of opinion comes on. I think Aldo. It's
just hard to win rounds when you're moving backwards, dude. It's just
it really is, and it shouldn't be that way because you can counter strike very effectively. But whatever. But I thought Aldo looked like young again in that fight. You know, it looked like the bantamweight cut did him like favors almost. And this, like, so both you and I have interviewed Aldo a couple of times. I remember the last time I interviewed him, I tried to talk to him about the anniversary of the time he got knocked out by Conor McGregor. That went really well. In fact, actually, for the listeners, I did that in front of John. And like, as I finished, John went, well, you just had to ask him, huh? I was like, yeah, I don't know why I did that. But this, like,
he's like, dude, hey, real quick, can we just talk about the worst moment of your life?
Yeah, so you're awesome. Dying on the way to 135 for the first time. Remember that time you got sparked? Yeah, that was good. Remember how you're never having that rematch too? Great. But this week we did a group scrum with Aldo, and there was a bunch of our peers were Brazilian, and it was the first time I've really seen Aldo in person speaking to Brazilians for a long period of time. He was very animated, and for a dude who's supposedly dying to 135, he didn't look that way.
Not at all.
Didn't look that way at all. Looked completely fine. Probably, in fact, healthier than I've seen him at some cuts at 145.
No, I would agree, and that's important to note, just because the first time, now granted, he ended up having a great performance, arguably won the fight, but there was no question that fight week he looked rough.
Oh, he looked like sunken in, like fucking. Yeah,
he didn't look rough. He did not look rough.
Which again, like, so we could be speaking too soon, right? That could be a bad thing. Like,
yeah, he'll probably be 139 or something.
Maybe he should be looking rough. Maybe he should be. But I'm still curious about the travel, man. Ask any fighter, you come off an international flight, your body's bloated for a couple of days, you know. But he didn't look rough. He was very talkative, and he was usually Aldo's, monotonous kind of guy almost.
Yeah.
But he was very animated. I found him interesting to. Couldn't listen to him, but I could watch him talk. He looked fresh, man. He looked fresh. It made me. Whereas before I was like, PDN's gonna win. Now I'm like, ooh, Aldo might be showing up. You know.
I'll say this. So here's the one thing that I found really interesting about what Aldo was saying. He kept talking about his striking, his K1 ability, his this sort of thing. Because here's what I'm gonna say. If he and he has great boxing. He really does have great boxing. But at this point in his career, if this is a boxing match, I'm taking Peter Yan. If Aldo will throw those kicks back in there, and that's it was funny to me. He said the words, "I like my K1, my kick, my kick." When he said that, I said, "Okay, if he's gonna go back to the leg kicks, I like that."
But don't you think though? I feel like every fight he's asked about the leg kicks, and I feel like every fight he goes, "Oh well, this time." It's like, dude, the last time he threw them was against Korean Zombie, I think, properly.
So he's got to mix the leg kicks in, or this. I don't want to say necessarily like wrestling, because I think his takedown defense is great. I don't know that his takedowns are that great. I don't know if maybe he wants to create some scrambles and try to take it to the ground at some point. So that's the other thing that made me laugh. So two things I thought about when he said, kept mentioning, I'm K1. He's either saying like, yeah, I'm bringing the kicks back in, or he's basically just trying to bait Jan into thinking, oh, we're going toe to toe, son. We're gonna stand and trade. But in reality, I'm gonna try to push this against the fence and try to create a scramble and take this to the floor.
I genuinely believe the two of them are going to go toe to toe. I believe it's going to be a kickboxing match. I believe it's going to be a bit like the first round of Aldo Moraes. Actually, I think it's going to be like 1-2, like almost in a traditional Muay Thai fight. My concern is if it is that, Pilian's knocking him out, because Pilian's got heavier hands.
I think so too.
And you can kick his legs, but if he cracks you, like Holloway finished him. Holloway doesn't hit that hard.
Right.
I mean, that's a stupid thing to say. I'm sure he does. But, I mean, like, he doesn't hit hard in the world of fighting, I suppose. Pilian does. And I think it's ironic, actually. It's funny enough, because this new sort of idea of, like, Aldo the aggressor, it's almost like, actually, Aldo the technical champion would probably do much better against Pilian to just outpoint him 5 rounds like he used to do to every motherfucker who fought him.
Yep.
It's actually funny. Like, that guy would probably serve him better this round, but he seems to be coming in like, let's go, And no, who doesn't want to watch that?
I'm down for it.
It's a good fight.
Stylistically, it should be fun.
Yeah.
All right, rounding out the main card, I will say this. I took Rose Namajunas over Jessica Andrade, which is crazy. I know, because Jessica Andrade had the highlight reel finish, but if it's not fresh in your memory, just remember how damn good Rose looked before that. And I will say this, and you kind of made a joke earlier about how like she wasn't, excited, interested. But remember this, and I didn't actually fully realize it until I sat down and was writing my blog for that day. Like, she's going to be fighting at like 6 a.m. and she was speaking to us at like 6 p.m.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
And I actually wrote it in my blog, and it came from a comment that you were saying. You were like, well, if somebody was fighting at 7 p.m. in Vegas, we interviewed him at 7 a.m. And I used that in my blog because I was like, Yeah, that's so like it doesn't make any sense at all. So Rose did. If you watch the video, she looked incredibly disinterested, and she actually like. I waited to turn on my camera because she actually yawned like 4 times before she did the first interview. But it wasn't one of those like facetious, like I'm bored, like I hate being here.
No, she was
just literally
super
looked
genuine.
tired.
She woke up. You know.
She literally looked tired. So I picked Rose in this. I will say this also, by the way, Jessica Andrade. I love the fact that she said she's moving to Vegas. She's moving to Vegas. She's going to move her whole team to Vegas. And she believes that'll give her more short notice opportunities, and she is willing to go to 125, 135 as well. So great matchup there. I took Rose in that one. And Amanda Hebus, I'm telling you, I've been high on Amanda Hebus since she came to the UFC because of her fighting skills, but also because of her personality, that X factor, everything that she has available to her. I'm not disrespecting Paige Van Zandt. I'm not trying to say, hey, this is a given, this doesn't happen, whatever. Paige is tough, but I do believe Amanda's the better fighter. But I do think Amanda is a star that's I think she's a star that's about to break out. And if she beats, I don't want to say a known commodity like Paige Van Zandt in terms of like fighting.
That's a fair comment.
Right? You know what I mean? Like,
I believe she describes herself as that, no?
That's it. So if she beats a known commodity like that, if she does it, and then she jumps on the mic and shows that enthusiasm that she has, man, I believe this could be a breakout moment for Amanda Hebus.
What would be the best thing is if she combined that like enthusiasm and like happy joyfulness with like mad shit talking, like I just fucking killed this bitch, come on, like that'd be great. She won't do that, but I'd enjoy that. Sorry, this came to mind.
That would be great. What do you think about Rose and Andrade? Because it's so funny, right? Like a fight like that where it's so one-sided up to that point, but then the other person gets the emphatic finish. Yeah, like which one do you take out going into the rematch?
I think like. You know, Andrade won the 1 out of 10 times she could have won that fight. You know, she kind of just sort of Hulk smashed it, which is in her wheelhouse, right? But I think Rose is because Rose is so understated as well. It's really easy to forget she's a fucking badass.
Yes, she
beat Joanna twice. That's no easy feat. And then I was watching the embeddeds, and I never really watched the embeddeds, but it's a sign of how excited I am for the card
and how much we've been stuck in our rooms.
Well, also that too. I mean, it can't even get porn, but. But Rose was hitting the pad.
It's true, you can't get
it's a nightmare. But Rose was hitting the pads in the embedded. She is so silky smooth, dude. Like her I don't want to sound like some mad sexist here, but there's a difference between like the level of women fighters versus the average level of men fighters, right? The average and average is just not the same.
Right.
But like Rose has, regardless of gender, just like silky elite level striking.
Oh, it's pretty to watch, man.
So like low energy, but like sharp punches. She was hitting the pads with a pad barrier, and I was like, man, she looks fucking good, dude. So yeah, I think Rose might just like, because it's only 3 rounds as well. Like, you know, she's not gonna like, oh, I'll let this Brazilian clinch me again. You know, she's gonna stick and move, and I think she'll probably make a show of it.
Mentioning her real quick, it's funny. How about the fact that I don't want to say it was low-key shade, but, you know, she was saying
it was.
she was saying that she wasn't happy with her first performance. You know, what did you take away from that first fight? Because the question being, yes, you got knocked out in emphatic fashion with a big slam, but at the same time you looked amazing up to that point. And I made sure to point out to her that I thought you looked amazing up to that point. And she said, no, you know what I took out of that is that I have things to fix. And I'm like, well, I mean, a lot of people thought you looked really good. And she was like, well, yeah, it's easy to look good when she just stands there and lets you hit her. And I was like, damn.
Yeah, seriously.
That was low-key shade.
I think Andrade is such like an affable and nice person. But I do feel, again, I'm just clutching this out of thin air. I do feel like Andrade knows she got a bit lucky as well.
I think so.
I think Andrade.
She even said it. She said, I know
I can't do the same thing again. Right?
I know if I fight the same way, it's going to be a bad night for me. How awesome is that to say, yeah, I knocked her out with a slam, but if I fight the same way, it won't be a good night for me.
Yeah, she.
I love that awareness.
Yeah,
I love that.
Like again, it's the same as like unique people in the sport. Like self-awareness is almost like you can't have it as a fighter, because if you're self-aware, every fight you go into, you'd be like, this motherfucker might beat me. This guy's scary.
Yeah.
You need like no self-awareness. But when you do find it every now and again, I think like Forrest Griffin used to have it. Bisping sometimes had it. Chael had it when he wasn't pretending. Like when you find it, it's very interesting to hear.
I agree. All right, listen, we're not going to take a ton of time. I mean, we've already talked for long enough. You're probably tired of us.
Yeah,
You're going to be tired of us by the end of Fight Island because I mean,
You got nowhere else to go.
We got nothing else to do. We're going to be talking. There ain't nobody else here. We're going to be knocking out those 1.5 episodes over on patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. So make sure you check those out. Just real quick for me, Volkan Oezdemir versus Yuri Prochazka. Yuri Prochazka, if you don't know who this guy is, he's dangerous. He's a scary dude. He's been fighting overseas, making his UFC debut. This dude is a killer, and the fact that they're putting him up against Volkan Oezdemir in the first matchup goes to show you, A, they probably paid a lot of money for him, and B, they believe in his abilities. So that'll be good. And just as an MMA fan, if you don't know the names or you hadn't thought about it, stylistically, Muslim Salikov and Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos could be a ridiculously wild fight, man. Just the styles that they bring to the matchup could be a lot of fun. So make sure you check that out. All right, I guess last thing I'll just say real quick, if you weren't sure, again, go check out the blog. Go check out the Fight Island Chronicles. You see a lot of details. But the venue, if you're one of those gamblers, one of those fantasy fight type people, the venue is nothing like it was before. Last year, September 242.
It was hotter than the surface of the sun.
It was hot, man. It was so hot. It's cool in there. I think that's important to note, again, with the fights. I do think that people aren't going to fatigue as quickly. It's not going to be as overwhelming. I think they're going to be able to concentrate, feel a lot better like they do in the Apex. And we'll see how the Flash Forum looks for the first time on TV. We saw it today. It wasn't quite together yet. Yeah. But it kind of is. Yeah, it's like the. It's a
supersized Apex.
I was gonna say we got to come up with some nickname. It's because it's basically the Abu Dhabi version of the Apex. So I don't know if anybody's got any good nicknames. Let's come up with that.
Abupex.
See, that's what I'm saying. That
shit.
Sounds terrible. Yeah. There's something there though. We got to work on it, man. But
it's dry zone.
So we'll figure it out. Hit us up. So, yes, we'll have plenty of coverage. Tune in to MMA Junkie for full coverage. Tune in to the Mac Life for full coverage. Make sure you vote for just one of us. I don't care who you vote for. World MMA Awards. Go to.
I do.
Yeah, vote for one or the other. Just register your vote.
Just not for ESPN.
Obviously, for Journalist of the Year, please vote for me.
Yeah, John Morgan, Journalist of the Year.
If Oscar Willis was there, I'd say it doesn't matter who you vote for, but he's not. So vote for me. And make sure you go to patreon.com/the NBA Roadshow. Sign up over there for as little as $3 a month. You can have all kinds of exclusive content. Shout out to Cold Coffee for putting this all together. We miss them.
Yes, Cold Coffee.
But we're finally getting settled in. It's going to be a long time. We got 3 more weeks here.
Fucking hell, yeah. Can't get a drink after 12.
Can't get a drink after midnight, so we're going to try to get these things done very early so that we can have time to drink until midnight. Damn. And we'll just say, so that we can leave and drink till midnight. Thanks for listening.